I am so excited about this new project that I just figured out last night. It's toilet paper pumpkins. These are made with really just toilet paper and newspaper and a little bit of water. They don't need any glue, any paper mache, and they have a nice surface for painting. And they turn out like this. These were done by second graders. I'm so excited. This is going to be so easy to do with my classes. So, I have seen a bunch of cute like donut tutorials. Oh yeah, this one's made out of toilet paper too. Can't wait to show you the details on this. Sneak peek video coming soon. But I started off with some different experiments. I tried some tin foil and plaster cast and used fancy stuff to make some of these. And yeah, I made some cute pumpkins. But the way easier way was to just use toilet paper and newspaper. So here are the instructions for how to make the easiest, cute little pumpkin ever by using just a single sheet of newspaper and some toilet paper and a little bit of water. So what I do is I'm going to start with a piece of newspaper, open it up, and crinkle it into a ball. I want it to be sort of a loose ball. I don't want it to be super, super tight because however big this is how big my pumpkin is going to be. So I'm going to make it so that it fits in my two hands and it'll expand a little bit. There we go. So that's pretty much a ball. All right. Now I'm going to take some toilet paper, wrap it around, go a couple ways this way, a couple times this way. It's okay if it rips. Now this is sort of a mess. I've just got sort of a blob of toilet paper right now. I'm going to do one more, maybe diagonally. Right now, I don't have a lot of toilet paper on here, but that's fine. So I've got my wad of newspaper wrapped in toilet paper. I'm just going to mist this. I have this on the mist setting, and I need to put my thing down in the sink so that I'm not spraying water everywhere. And I'm just going to put a little bit of water on all the sides. I don't want my newspaper inside to get wet. So I'm just going to pat that down a little bit. You can see I still have some very floppy edges on here, so it's not quite wet enough. What'll happen is as this toilet paper starts to get moist and damp, again, not dripping wet, just a little bit wet, then it's going to start sticking to itself. And now, if I use my gentle hands around, I can start shaping that ball. And I have a little bit of holes there. I'm going to mist it a little bit more first if I see dry spots. See if I can get those places to get settled down first. Then I can take a little bit more toilet paper and add some patchwork. I can add another layer right over the top of that one. I'm going to go just around once and rip it off. Spray it. It's okay if some of my newspaper underneath shows, but I want to try and get a layer so that it's going to be lumpy. It's going to be bumpy. I still have some dry spaces on there. You can see the color is a little bit different between the wet and the dry. I don't want it to be dripping wet, but I do want it to be at least damp all over. So I'm smoothing it out, and right now I have a nice ball. It's sort of a lumpy, clumpy ball, but that's okay. And now I'm going to make the top to my pumpkin. So for that, I'm just going to unroll. There's not really a right or wrong way to do this. I just need a little section. I'm going to fold it in half again. I have to be able to think about putting this on my pumpkin. So I folded it a couple times. I'm going to mist the front and the back. And so I want sort of these tails to stick on here. I'm going to put the left side and the right side on and then twist it up. I could also do it by just twisting it. Oh, it came apart, but that's okay. I'm going to put it back together because it sticks to itself. It's very sticky. And then I'll just take this part and sort of open it up. So I've got the twisty stem. I've got that part. I can give it another mist if I need to. And then I can attach it on by using another sheet of toilet paper. See how it's just flopping over? It's not really sticking. I can put one on this side, so it's going right up to the stem. Put another one here. Mist it. Now, if I squish this in my hands a lot, it's going to just squish because there's newspaper inside, and it's not very strong. But if I just do this gently and lightly around, that's sticking up. When this dries, it's going to be much sturdier and much stronger, and that's all there is to it. So we figured out one more way of making a stem that's actually a little bit easier, is you can just take the leftover little pieces or take a couple squares and get those really wet. So more wet than the rest of the things are. Nice and wet. You can squeeze out the extras, and this sort of becomes like clay now. So I can squish that up to be a stem, but that of course is not going to just stay on there by itself. So you can squish that up to make a stem, and then take one more square or two more squares in this case, take that, just lay it right over the top of the thing you just made, and then spray, spray, spray. Now normally you'd want to do this over the sink. I'm making a big puddle on my countertop, but that will hold down that piece and attach it. So this end is a little bit floppy, so I'll put it over the sink and spray it a little bit more to get it nice and wet, and that should hold that piece onto the top so that now my stem is totally attached. After it dries, we can paint it. So here's a sneak peek of what they look like when we're painting them. But before that, let's see some classes in action and talk about some troubleshooting of things you can do if your pumpkin doesn't turn out the way you want it to. All right, and now point it, don't point the water bottle at her, point it over the sink. All right, and then turn it and get the other part of your pumpkin. All right, spray it over the sink, guys. Turn it and pat it, and turn it and pat it. Good teamwork, guys. How's it going over here?
Bad.
Not so good. All right, it looks like you need a little bit more water. It's looking a little dry. It's good that you're not using too much water, but add a little bit of water to smooth it out. Oh, this one looks good. All right, we're going to talk about troubleshooting for a second. So if your pumpkin doesn't turn out exactly perfectly, let's talk about possible reasons for that. So this one is looking like it has some loose edges on it. That just means it was not wet enough. So adding more water to this one is going to help fix that. So let's spray it with a little spray bottle here and get this wet. Actually, I'm going to set it down in the sink so that I'm not getting water everywhere. So spraying it with some more water. And we want the toilet paper to get wet enough that it sticks to itself. So it's almost like clay. So you can see that part is a little wetter now, but it's still a little floppy. These floppy edges mean that it's not wet enough. So we need to keep adding water until all of those floppy, and now this one has been sitting out for a while, so it's dried out and that underneath water isn't quite there anymore. So the first thing to check is to see if it's wet enough. If you have these kind of floppy edges on there, getting them wet, and it'll be a little bit more like clay now. You can see that that part is patting down a little better. The other piece of thing that you can do for troubleshooting is if you have open holes or gaps, is to just add a patch onto it. So to add a patch, grab your toilet paper, take a little square, and make sure that surface area is wet where it's going to go. Set one piece of toilet paper on there, and that's sort of a smooth surface. And then we can spray it some more and pat that down, and that's going to help cover any holes that are on there. And again, you can see that I have some dry spaces on there, and dry toilet paper is not going to stick. It needs to be wet for it to stick. So the next thing to think about when troubleshooting is if it's too wet. You can see this piece of paper right here underneath this one weighs a ton. It is soaking wet, and if I squeeze it a little bit, you can see some water coming out of it. So you need to find a balance as you're making these that they're not too wet. If I squeeze this, you can see that there's a lot of extra water in this one. So if you find that it's too wet, you can't squeeze the whole thing because it will just crush, but you can try and squeeze out your stem or squeeze out little pieces. It's hard to take water out. You can always add more water like I did on this one, but it's hard to take water out. But you can set it on another piece of newspaper or on a piece of paper to let that the water come out slowly. You can also turn it so that different parts of it will dry. That's a common thing if they're really wet, that the bottom doesn't dry out. It's also getting a little flat right there because it's heavy from the weight of this. So you can sort of squish it and mold it a little bit to help get it back in the right shape. One other thing that I see often in terms of trouble is the stem coming off. So this stem is connected. It's going to stay on there pretty well. This stem looks like it's just sort of sitting on there, so that's not going to stay connected. The way to get that to stay on is to take an extra piece of toilet paper, put it over the whole thing, and we're going to spray that down, and it'll stay attached to that. So if we add a little bit more water, that piece is just sort of patched down over the top of all that, and we can pat down and then squish back our stem. And this part is still floppy, so it needs a little bit more water. But if your stem is coming off of the top, it just might need a patch to go over the top of it. All right, so we just had our trial run. I had a 4th grade class make our newspaper and toilet paper pumpkins, and I feel like they turned out really well. One of the key tricks, of course, is having students have a partner. So I always do this when I'm doing paper mache or anything else that is messy or potentially could have some bad results and you want everybody to have a final product, is that I always give everybody a partner. So you make one and your assistant helps you out, and then you help your assistant and you switch roles, and we can usually get that done. So this was done in a 45-minute class period. I think they turned out pretty well. Let's see how they dry. We're doing this on a Friday, so we have plenty of time for them to dry over the weekend. At the end of the day today, I'll probably turn them on their side because you can see they've left a little spot. But to keep track of them, I just draw squares on a piece of paper and they write their name on it as they come back, and I put them on boards so that I can easily move them to another shelf. But there we have it. Paper mache, toilet paper pumpkins. Yay! So update, I've done this with a ton of my 2nd through 5th grade classes. It was super successful. You could do it with older kids too, obviously. They take about 24 to 48 hours to dry unless they're super wet like that one. We painted them with our own custom color of orange, which we mixed with red and yellow. And then the kids had the option of painting the stems and adding extra decorations on there too. We had a lot of fun. So am I the last one to learn about this trick? Have you guys tried this? Or if you try it, please tell me what other projects I can do with this. I'm so excited to see what else we can make in the art room and at home with my kids. So if you know more about toilet paper sculpture or you try it out, let me know how it goes. Leave a comment below. If you want more fun project ideas, check out my YouTube channel, like, subscribe. I'm also on Instagram at Nicole Hoff Arts.